maybe there isn't an exact answer. And that's what this book is about. It's about creating that template, and then the reader puts themselves into that template and kind of makes it their own. And so, like I said, as I was writing it, it just clicked for me. I was like, this is like a self-help book as well. It's not just self-defense. So I wanted to brand it as such, because also a lot of people shy away from self-defense because they think it's violent, aggressive, things of that nature. And I want to rebrand that to where, no, we're talking about self-protection, not you going out and just like punching people in the face as you're walking down the street and things of that nature.
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stevenson, the Odd Man. He'll unpack wisdom and insights from a cross-section of top quality performers in business, media, sports, entertainment, and lifestyle to uncover key elements to help you live your best audacious life ever. So without further ado, here is the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations, folks. It's Audley Stevenson back for another edition of the most audacious podcast the internet has to offer. You've got it locked to the Audacious Living Podcast, and I appreciate you for being here as we continue our ongoing goal of helping our listeners live their best audacious lives ever. As always, I encourage you to connect with us on our social media channels. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook under the handle The Audacious Pod. And then, of course, if you're watching this particular episode on our YouTube channel, then you know that we've got that bell that all you got to do is tap it down below. Ding, ding, ding. And you are immediately connected to all great things audacious related. Now, getting what we want out of life isn't always the easiest thing to achieve, and there's going to be many instances in which we'll have to fight like tooth and nail to get that best audacious life that we talk about here on this podcast. Today's guest, who just so happens to be a former Special Forces vet of 10 years, certainly believes this to be true, and he's even written a guidebook that serves partly as a self-defense as well as a self-development book, simply to help others navigate this world as safely as possible. His name is John Brewer, and his book is called Fight for Your Best Life, and he's up next on the Audacious Living Podcast. Hey, John, thank you for joining me today on the Audacious Living Podcast. It's a pleasure for you to be here, and thank you for making the time like this.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Certainly want to, well, you're an author, so I mean, maybe we'll start there. First time author, is this correct? Is it?
That is correct.
Oh boy, was that the dream?
Yeah. No, actually, it's hard to say because my granddad, he was a preacher, and he actually authored a couple books. So I feel like that's kind of where maybe I got a little bit of the writing bug.
Okay.
When I say writing bug, I actually do not like writing. But I knew that. But it's more so just to develop the book, right? It's less about the action of writing, and more so about putting something out there that could be valuable to other people.
Got you. So on the topic of value for other people, the book is called Self-Defense for Self-Development.
Correct. Yeah.
Want to explain it, the title of it?
Yeah. So when I first came up with the concept of the book, really, I just wanted to come out with a very basic foundational level self-defense book. I know there's a lot of books out there that kind of they might go into certain techniques and like especially hand-to-hand type of stuff and things like that. But there's a lot more to self-defense than just the hand-to-hand aspect. And really, and a lot of that comes from a military background, to where like when we're planning for operations and things like that, the whole planning process is a process within its own. And that's really what helps us out, is that it's not just that we're trained in certain abilities and techniques. It's the fact that we do the type of planning and that preparation that then carries over to the operational side, so that everything falls into place the way it should, or in theory anyway. Obviously, there's always things that pop up here and there that kind of throw a wrench into the system. But so that's kind of how the book started. And then as I was progressing through it, I realized that as I was writing it, like, because I do try to take more of a mentor type stance when I'm ever providing some type of information. I never want to give you the exact answer because maybe there isn't an exact answer. And that's what this book is about. It's about creating that template, and then the reader puts themselves into that template and kind of makes it their own. And so, like I said, as I was writing it, it just clicked for me. I was like, this is like a self-help book as well. It's not just self-defense. So I wanted to brand it as such, because also a lot of people shy away from self-defense because they think it's violent, aggressive, things of that nature. And I want to rebrand that to where, no, we're talking about self-protection, not you going out and just like punching people in the face as you're walking down the street and things of that nature. It's you are absolutely the victim in these scenarios. You're not the aggressor, but it's absolutely vital that you understand how to protect yourself, because if not, you'll put yourself in a bad situation. And I hate when good people, quote unquote, because obviously that's all subjective, but at the same time, I hate it when bad things happen to good people, and I'd rather them be prepared for these types of events.
Got you. Makes sense loud and clear. So maybe let's walk. So I get the self-defense aspect of it. It makes sense and it's clear, cut and dry as far as I'm concerned. Walk me through the self-development piece and how you are helping people get to a better place.
Yeah, so I guess the best way to do that is the book is separated into 5 sections. The first half of the book is more of that self-developmental piece. So, and it's a lot of like analytical processes and things of that nature. So the first section is all about yourself. It's figuring out what your goals are in life. It's figuring out what your core values are. It's figuring out, and then you actually are going to creating some of these goals. Now, within those goals, there's safety goals, which obviously is mostly what the book is about. And then you are also going to put down your life goals, because what I try to do is align your life goals with your safety goals, because in all reality, a lot of that is going to align. And I want to use your strengths instead of using something that you've never been exposed to before. And then also the second part of the book is about analyzing external factors. So anything that's around you that could be part of that safety event, or resources that can be utilized for that safety event. So just to name a few, obviously your family members and your friends, that's going to be your first circle. And then branching out from there, then you're going to have law enforcement, you're going to have lawyers, you're going to have the judicial system and things of that nature. And obviously, once I get up to those higher bubbles, they're going to be more of a high level overview, because I can't write, if I wrote a book about all that stuff about the United States judicial system, and it'd be a whole separate book, and I don't have that credential. So I kept a very high level, just to give people an understanding of these elements. And then the next half of the book is all about, so it's 3 sections. It's preparation and prevention. That's the 3rd section. 4th section is the safety event itself. And that just goes along with like concepts about what happens during an event. And so obviously I especially can't give you the answer, because it could be, it could be a verbal altercation. It could be an actual physical violence or things of that nature. It could be with a weapon, without a weapon. So, but I talk about certain concepts that can be applied to these scenarios instead of, and they are conceptual. They're kind of, for an example, I talk about establishing leverage. Now, leverage could mean different things, like obviously physical leverage, or maybe psychological leverage if we are talking about verbal altercations and things of that nature. And then the last section, the last part of the book, is about the aftermath. And I think that's one aspect that a lot of self-defense books don't probably kind of dive into. And it's just more so about how, like, obviously a major part of that is if something bad was to happen, and maybe you do endure a loss, or maybe, you start to develop PTSD, or, something along those lines. And it just talks about, and I'm not a MD or anything like that, but at the same time, some of my military experience, like obviously in my personal life and in my military career, I've gone through certain things that have allowed me to have a certain perspective on this topic. And then also and so it's just talking about like life after the event, and kind of how to, everything comes full circle, and, you recover, and then it goes right back into prevention and preparedness, because now you understand, once you've lived something, now you understand it better. And so now that all goes back into your planning, so that you're better prepared God forbid if something else was to happen, hopefully you don't go through two events in your lifetime. But I mean, obviously that is a possibility.
Got you. I would imagine your I think it's safe to say your military experience, your background has helped you hugely. I want you to sort of talk about how that prepared you. But even again, from the self-development standpoint, how military has attuned or trained your mind.
Yeah, it definitely has. Growing up, I definitely didn't have the same mindset that I have today, and really all the way up until my college career. Because now I'm really about self-development for myself. I'm always trying to look for something that can better myself, whether it be physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. And so that's kind of the um, that's kind of what the military did for me. Is it put me in a better place to where I'm always wanting to learn. Because like I said, growing up when I went to school, I didn't care about class truly. I didn't have a direction in high school. And then in college, I went to college for exercise and sports science because I was interested uh, in working out and fitness. And that was about it. And then, but once I ended up joining the military, uh, it puts you in a situation to where you have to grow, personally. You have to develop, you have to build on that foundation that you've gained throughout your life. But then you're going to have another aspect of your personality that's going to show, good or bad, obviously, because there's a lot of people who join the military and sometimes it does go a little south. But at the same time, it's all about getting you out of your comfort zone. And the military did that for me for sure. Obviously, one of the biggest things is showing up the basic training, and then you have to take a group shower with complete strangers. And I remember that, not not like in complete detail, but I remember my mindset of being like, okay, well, here we go. And then that's the same mindset that I had throughout the rest of my military career. If there was something that I wasn't unsure of or something that I felt like that was completely out of my comfort zone, I just went with it, and what's the worst? Normally in training and things of that aspect, there's nothing too bad that can come out of it. Obviously, maybe your ego gets bruised a little bit, or maybe you get a little bit embarrassed. But for this, I always talk about, like, if no one got hurt or no one, got killed, it's still a good day, right? And that's something that you can learn from. And then once I got operational and I started deploying, then that aspect of my life really, took another huge leap, because now I had that perspective of like true life and death, to where I had to, come to terms with, there might be a possibility that I do die on this deployment. And at the time, uh, the first deployment I was single, and the second deployment I was actually in a relationship. But at the same time, I was always thinking about my family too, because I know, like, my mom, she's my mom. She's my biggest supporter. She's just like any mother is. And one of the biggest things that would always get to me is like, what would happen to her? So now I'm thinking about, like, how do I prepare her and things of that nature? Because it would be less about me and more about them. And so, yeah, so that type of thinking is kind of what led me to the book too, because once I understood that, truly, because when I was growing up in life, I never really came across a situation that was too dangerous or life altering or anything like that. And it wasn't to the military that I was really getting exposed to, like, real world stuff you see on the news and things like that. And that changed my perspective on things, because a lot of people are like that. A lot of people, they'll live through life and never go through an event. And hopefully that's what, a majority of people go through. They'll never see any type of violence in their life or anything like that. But at the same time, for those who do, now that I have, we have to be honest with ourselves. There are bad people in this world, and they are going to want to do bad things to people for whatever reasons. And so people have to be prepared for that, whether they've been exposed to it before or not. And so really that's kind of, and I talk about this, well, not talk about it, but it's one of my kind of, what I think brings value to in the book is perspective, because I do try to bring a multidisciplinary approach to it. It's not just about my military career. It's also about optimal performance with sports psychologists. It's also about, obviously the medical portion when it talks about PTSD and mental health and things like that. So I'm trying to bring in all these different perspectives, because although they may not directly relate to self-defense, they do have their place. And the more perspective we gain on life, the better we understand it. Whether and especially, as the book is published and content starts to get thrown around, hopefully it does inspire discussion, and more people come to the discussion, whether it's victims, whether it's professionals, things of that nature. Like, I'm trying to make it a discussion that continues, that we just talk about perspectives, because obviously we only know what we know, and if we've never been exposed to something, then it's hard for us to relate to it. But yeah, that is another aspect of the book. And then also, as you were asking, is my military career is like perspective. That's truly what I gained from it, is just understanding the world outside of what I knew it to be, and what it truly is.
Yeah, as you're talking about perspective, it's going to help us think how important that is to our overall development. Tunnel vision is a great thing if it's working for you, but if that's all if you're going to ever be in that tunnel, nowhere else. But we got to come out, right? We got to see more than what we know in our heads or what we believe in our mind. And so, certainly, perspective is a good thing. Again, as an author, you've got a different perspective, right? You didn't start off an author. You certainly ended up as one. Was there an intended reader that you had in mind?
Yes, I it's what's truly, the book is for anybody. It is, and hopefully everybody understands that, and they'll pick it up. But at the same time, it is going to be marketed towards those who are looking for some type of direction in their life. So that self-developmental piece, and then also families, heads of households. Obviously, I'm I'm one of the, hopefully my career takes me there, but one things I've been working towards is to work in the field of counter child exploitation and things of that nature. So really, when I'm writing this book, I'm thinking about children, because also they don't have a means to protect themselves other than the adults that they're around them. And so I want to prepare those adults so they can better protect their children. So that's another thing, is heads of households and families. And then the last thing is, obviously, if you've been a victim of violence and abuse and things like that, I'd like for you to take a look at the book, just because, like I said, I'm not a doctor. I don't have any degree in mental health or anything like that. But at the same time, just like anybody else, we've all been through some type of hurt or loss or stuff like that. And so that perspective, although it might not be the same, it is definitely similar. And so I do talk about that in my book as well. And really, so for people who have been victimized by acts of violence and things of that nature, I think this does give them, at least, if nothing else, a little bit of a reset, so that they can kind of establish that foundation again. Because I'm assuming a lot of them do feel a little lost, and they feel like their life has been shaken, and now they're kind of left to figure it out. And I think this book gives a good direction for how to bring that all back together, and then give your life a direction and purpose. And then that's what you're always working towards. As soon as you build up those goals, and you have a program to follow by, or not even a program, but just a direction to go by, then that's going to be your compass. And then that's going to, like, anytime you feel lost or anything else, you're like, wait a second, like, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to, pursue blah, 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 or whatever it might be. And then everything just aligns with that. And that's all you're ever trying to do. When you meet new people, not every people we meet are going to be our best friends, but hopefully those are going to, it's all about alignment. And so it's all about meeting the right people that align with your life, and then, getting the job that aligns with your life, and having the hobbies that align with, so that's kind of what the book also talks about, is alignment, and making sure that everything that you're working towards all works together, instead of, like, you got with this one thing on the side that's always, distracting you, and then that's keeping you away from other things that you could be focused on. So I'd say those three kind of demographics is, head of households, families, and those who have been victimized.
Awesome. Well, it really sounds interesting. This, and I tell you, like, it's clearly not your typical self-defense book, that's for sure.
No.
Just listen to you describe it. It's not your typical book, and that enough is to spark my curiosity and interest. I thank you for sharing about that. To our audience or listeners who want to learn more about you, or where to get the book, where can we send them?
Yeah. So, my right now my website is on GoDaddy, and so I'm trying to pull that off and put it on another server. So it will become mindshieldandSpear.com without the GoDaddy sites attached to it. Hopefully, within the next month or so. Also, if I'm on LinkedIn. I have a Facebook page as well for the book. Actually, the page is Mind, Shield, and Spear, the book, just because at the time I didn't have a true title that I wanted to go with. And then also, if readers happen to just want to reach out to me for whatever reason, one, LinkedIn is a possibility. Also, two, they can reach out by email. They can do out because I monitor the address. It'd be info@mindshieldandSpear.com. And then I'll be able to reach through, speak to them through email as well.
Awesome. Listen, John, I appreciate you doing this. It's been great chatting with you, and congrats on the book. I know, writing a book, that's the whole process in itself. And so glad that you went through that. Congrats, and take care and all the best.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. And thanks for having me on.
Appreciate it. Back we are here on the podcast, and much thanks and appreciation goes out to John for being here and sharing insights on his book. Again, the title, Fight for Your Best Life. And of course, it's available everywhere now, and you can purchase it, so go out and grab your copy. I truly appreciated much of what John had to share today, but if there's just one thing I take from our chat, it would have to be this. As we go through the ups and downs of life, it is incredibly important that we keep fighting no matter how difficult things get. Now, this can mean different things to each of us, but ultimately, it means living a life that aligns with our values, goals, and aspirations. At times, it can be easy to settle into a routine or become comfortable or complacent in our lives. But if we don't actively fight for what we want out of life, we may never achieve our full potential. It's important to understand and remember that we only have one life to live. So why not make it the best life possible? And so that we're clear, when I talk about fighting for our best life involves taking risks, stepping outside of that comfort zone where it's safe and secure, and pursuing the things that we're passionate about. It requires us to be proactive and intentional about our actions as well as our decisions, rather than just kind of coasting through life. When we fight for our best life, we become more resilient and adaptable. We learn how to overcome obstacles and challenges that come our way, and they certainly will. And we become more confident in our ability to handle anything that life throws at us. And we know that life will constantly barrage us and we'll just be hit nonstop. It's about finding what makes us happy and fulfilled and striving towards that with all that we have. Fighting for our best life is crucial for our overall well-being and happiness. And it's for this reason why it's important to take intentional steps towards living a life that aligns with our values and our passions, and to celebrate our successes along the way. As we navigate the twists and turns of life, let's all commit to fighting for our best audacious life. We've come to the end of another episode of the Audacious Living Podcast. And as always, I send my thanks and appreciation to our amazing listeners and all those lovers of Audaciousness for their tremendous ongoing support. It is so much appreciated. And as always, I say thank you. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stevenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.